Sit back, relax. You're listening to the Brogcast. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Brogcast. Oh man, earlier I was so livid. So, last night I recorded an entire 1 hour episode of the Brogcast, and I said, okay, it's getting late, because usually I record these episodes late at night, and so I was like, okay, I'll just edit this in the morning because it takes quite a while to edit, and I was like, I need to go to bed. Well, earlier I went to go edit it, and the entire video I could see on the bottom with the sound clip, it was flatline, and I was like, that's kind of weird. Maybe it hasn't loaded yet, so I gave it a little bit in the editor to see if it would load, and it just didn't. It was all flatline, so I listened to it, and you can kind of hear my voice just a little bit, and I was like, that's not normal. What's going on here? I was like, is there an issue with my microphone or my interface? And I checked everything out. Everything was good. And then I went into my control panel to kind of see where the sound's coming in. And at the very bottom of my control panel was my freaking controller. The controller microphone was on. So it was connected and it was on, and even better, it was set as the default device. So, which is weird because I don't ever set that as my default device. This microphone is the default device, so I don't know what happened. But anyway, it was trying to record with the freaking controller mic, and so that's why it sounded like crap. And that's why it was pretty much flatlined. So, yeah, I was kind of mad because I did an entire hour episode. I haven't done an hour episode yet. I've been doing 40 minutes or so, and when I was done, I looked at the time, and I was like, awesome, it's going to be an hour episode. So I was so hyped to edit it. And that's where we're at. So this is take 2, and it's in the middle of the day. So it's kind of weird, but I'm just eager to get this episode out. An hour episode is so awesome. All right. So I asked ChatGPT, just like last night, to give me 50 music-related questions. We're going to do a music theme here. 50 music-related questions to answer here on the Brogcast. So, first question is, what is the first album you ever bought? So, it doesn't specify if it's vinyl, CD, or digital, but I assume it means vinyl. And the very first vinyl record that I ever bought was The Chronic by Dr. Dre. And it's kind of stupid. I bought it, but I didn't have an actual record player like I do now. I don't know what I expected. Maybe I just wanted it as like a collectible. I don't know. But my mom, she still has it, had a antique record player. It's this big cabinet. It looks kind of like a dresser. You open up the top, and on one side is a record player, and on the other side is a AM/FM radio. Well, I didn't have a real record player, so I would play The Chronic on this record player, and the issue with this record player is on the tone arm, there is no counterweight. It's an old design. So there's no real way to tell how heavy it's pressing on the record as it goes around. And I'm guessing it's around 3 grams because usually those record players and a lot of like the newer ones, like the Crosleys that are just cheaply made and they don't have the modern design with the counterweight and everything. This particular one I think was pressing on 3 grams. And the reason why I think that is because there was one particular song on The Chronic that I really liked that I played over and over again, and that was Fuck with Dre Day. And so I played that track many, many times on that record player, and there's one spot on the record where there's a big scratch. And the reason why I know this is because when I got my own record player and I put the record on, it skips in that same spot every single time. And I was so bummed. I still have the record. The record overall sounds fine. It's just that one spot. But that was my first album that I ever bought on vinyl, and it's one of my favorite albums of all time. I bought it back when around the time that Straight Outta Compton came out, the biopic about NWA, and I was like, I'm gonna go buy this album, and yeah, it's one of my favorites. I also have it on CD, and I used to bump that in my car quite a bit. So yeah, it's a great album. I highly recommend it. The Chronic by Dr. Dre. First question is, who was your first musical idol? I think my first musical idol, without a doubt, was Neil Peart. And that is because I was introduced to Rush at a very early age. And so I knew who Neil Peart was very early on. And then when I was about 12, I got into drums and I knew about Neil Peart. And I immediately just listened to Rush over and over and over again because I was like, this guy is a drumming god. He is amazing, and he was one of the first artists to get me to pick up those sticks and continue to push forward and get better at drums. It was him and also Brad Wilk from Rage Against the Machine. I would say Brad Wilk had a bigger influence on my style of playing, but Neil Peart was a big inspiration and just sort of inspired me to keep going. Next question is, what song instantly takes you back to your childhood? There's a lot of songs that do that. I guess I'll just have to pick one. I would say, let's see. One song that takes me back to my childhood is Pump It by Black Eyed Peas. And I remember when that album first came out. I forget the name of the album. But the album with that song on it came out around 2005. And I remember my sisters bought that CD and we would play it all the time. So whenever I hear Pump It by the Black Eyed Peas, or maybe even My Humps, which is it's a goofy song that's on that album as well. If I hear those two songs, brings me right back. Same with what's the other one? Don't Funk With My Heart. That's another one from that album. So all three of those songs, they just shoot me right back to 2005, and makes me think about hanging out with my sisters. And yeah. Next question is, what is the soundtrack of your life right now? Right now, okay. Yeah, it asked me this question yesterday, but it was a very broad and complicated question. It said, what is the soundtrack of your life as a whole? And I sat here for like 10 minutes. I was like, I don't know, but right now, this is kind of a tough one as well. Not as tough as the other one, but I don't know. Let me look. I'm gonna cheat a little bit. I'm gonna look on my Spotify repeat playlist because there's got to be something on there that sort of represents the way my life is right now. I would say so. Here we go. Here's a song on my repeat playlist here on Spotify. It's Big Man by Kari. Big Man by Kari is all about wanting to be great and to chase your dreams and be the best version of yourself. And I would say that's the song of my life right now. I'm trying to get better at certain things. I'm trying to improve my life. And yeah, I'd say that's a good song for my life right now. Next question is, do you remember your first concert experience? I absolutely do. So it's kind of funny. On Facebook yesterday, I had a memory come up of my first concert. And my first concert was Rush R40. It was their R40 tour. And I've mentioned this before, but I had no idea at this time, but this was Rush's final concert. After that tour, they never played again, and I didn't know that until months and months later. I was like, oh, I'm so glad I went to that concert because it was their last one. So yeah, I remember that like it was yesterday. It was amazing. They had, what I really liked is they had constantly changing stage props. So depending on the era of the music they were playing, they would decorate the stage to make it look like that time period. Um, like the songs that they had in the 70s, the songs that they played back then, they would have like a 70s style stage setup. And it was really cool. They did that for each decade. And of course, Neil Peart's drum solo, I have video of that on my Facebook page. Well, my personal one. I don't have a Brogcast Facebook page, which actually, that'd be kind of cool. I should probably do that. But I have video of Neil Peart's drum solo. It was iconic. I mean, it's iconic every single time, but that was super iconic. And then they had a funny little like South Park bit in there. They also, in between songs, they had like different videos they would play. And it was all around a great concert. I think my favorite part of that concert, other than Neil Peart's drum solo, was when they played Jacob's Ladder. And the reason for that is because there was one part in the song where the entire crowd really got into it. And it's funny, my stepdad, who took me to the concert, and who also introduced me to Rush, he was there with me, and he had a few beers. I had a few lemonades, and he was just going, Rush, Rush. And then everyone else around us started going, Rush, Rush during that song. And it was so awesome. Such a memorable concert. I'm so glad we went. It was amazing. Next question is, which genre do you secretly love but rarely admit? I would say like the early 2000s, like girl pop. So like Avril Lavigne and Christina Aguilera, Natasha Bedingfield, all those artists. I don't like all of their stuff, but a lot of their top hits, like I can jam to. But I won't tell anybody. Well, I just did. But usually I keep that a secret. So that's my answer to that one. Next question is, what is a song that you wish you had written? I don't really write songs. Especially lyrics and things like that. I write like maybe drum parts, or sometimes if I'm on like Soundtrap or whatever and I want to like throw a loop down or some sort of like keyboard thing. But lyrically, I don't write songs. I'm just not. I mean, I've attempted to, but it's always come out like super awful. So I don't write songs lyrically. So I really don't know how I would answer that question. But I do like to write instrumental parts with my band. I like to suggest certain drum parts, or yeah, it's mainly just that. Or if I have an idea on how the song is structured, then yeah, I throw that out there. But I don't really write music. I mainly just play it and I give ideas. Next question is, what is your guilty pleasure song? I already answered this, and I think it was 2 episodes ago, but it's Redneck Woman by Gretchen Wilson. Other than this podcast, I haven't told a single soul that I like this song. It's just a bop. It's just so good. And like I mentioned before, it brings me back to when it came out, which was like 2003, 2004. And so I feel very nostalgic for it as well. But instrumentally and just vibe-wise, it's an excellent song. Next question is, what is one song that never gets old for you? I mentioned this song before in a different question, in a different episode, but one song I cannot get tired of is You Dropped a Bomb on Me by the Gap Band. I talk about this song nonstop all the time. I feel like it's almost every episode I mention this song, but it's just so damn good. It's been in my Spotify Wrapped 2 years in a row, number one even. Like I mentioned before, I have a lot of songs that come in my Spotify Wrapped every year, but I've never had the same song at number one 2 years in a row. And that is a song right there. I have a 45 RPM record of the song. I listen to it all the time. I even have it on my Instagram page. There's a feature in Instagram where you can put a song on your profile. That's the song I put. You Dropped a Bomb on Me by the Gap Band. I'll never get tired of it, ever. Next question is, how do you start writing a song? So, like I said, I don't really write songs. I mainly perform and play songs on my drums. But from what I can understand, um, a lot of people start with writing lyrics and then the instrumentals come after. So I think structurally wise, that's kind of how it goes for most people. I mean, personally, if I were to write a song, usually I do the instrumentals first, and then I get sort of a vibe, and then I write the lyrics down to kind of match the instrumental vibe. But for most people, it's lyrics first, then instrumentals, and then there's also before you get to that point, there's also the inspiration aspect. You got to have the motivation and energy to write something. So that's another thing. So it probably goes inspiration for most people anyway. It goes inspiration, vocals, then lyrics. I think that's the process. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's the process of writing a song. Next question is lyrics or melody first. I literally just said that. I think that's a pattern with these questions. I think it sort of predicts what my answer is going to be. And so that's what the next question is. It's going to be related to how I answered it. And that's literally what just happened. So, like I said, for most people, I think it's lyrics first, then melody. But um, the few times that I have quote unquote written songs that were absolutely terrible, the instrumentals guided my lyrics. The instrumentals would give me a vibe for the song, and then I would write lyrics to match the vibe of the instrumentals. Next question is, what inspires your lyrics the most? People, places, or emotions? I would say emotions. If I'm like I said, I don't really write lyrics, but when I did write those terrible lyrics, one big factor was emotion. So if I was feeling super happy and motivated about something, I would get to writing. Or if I was feeling super depressed about something, which was rare in terms of songwriting, but if I was feeling super sad about something and depressed about something, I would that would make me rush to writing it down. And well, now that I think about it, I guess I kind of write songs. I'm a little bit better at comedy songs, so I just didn't really consider that actual material. But when I write a comedy song, yeah, usually what'll happen is I'll think of something and I start laughing to myself, and then I write it down, and then as I'm thinking about it before I run to the computer and actually make it, I start laughing my ass off. It happens every single time. So, yeah, I would say for me, emotion is a big part of it. If if I'm laughing my ass off and I really want to get to writing, yep, that's what drives me to it. If it's something depressing, then yes, that gets me to writing it down. Or if I'm happy, it gets me writing it. It's mainly just emotion that really drives my motivation to write something. Next question is, have you ever written a song in one sitting? Yes, I have. And actually, every time I write a song, if it's comedy wise or back when I made my really shitty ones that were, there was one depressing song and one just sort of neutral or maybe happy song. When I do write these songs, it is always in one sitting. I get this surge of inspiration and I just write it all down at once. It's very rare, and I don't think I have really spent a lot of time on lyrics. Usually I get a huge inspiration and then I finish the whole thing in one sitting. That's usually how I do it. Next question is, what is your songwriting red flag, a trope, or a lyric you try to avoid? I would say anything that's political or offensive. I try to keep it very lighthearted or funny, or I try to be super inclusive when it comes to my writing. I don't want to offend people or piss people off or anything like that. So that's it for me. I don't want to make anything political or offensive when it comes to my songwriting. Next question is, do you write songs for others? No, I don't. I'm not really a songwriter, and especially for other people. I mainly write songs for myself, but like I said, I really don't write songs all right, silly, comedy raps here and there. But I don't really write songs for people. I'm not really a songwriter. Next question is, how do you deal with writer's block? I've dealt with writer's block during like book reports or when I was doing like college essays. But when it comes to my own creative stuff, like, writing songs and stuff, I've never really had that problem. Um, I do have some sort of writer's block when it comes to drumming sometimes. And I don't know if you would call it writer's block. It's more of a creative block, like in general. But there are some times when I'm behind the drum set and it's not my day. I can't get the juices flowing. I can't nail or learn a song or have like the inspiration. And my way of dealing with that is I just stop. I stop and I say, you know what? I'm going to try this tomorrow or another day. I don't sit there and try to fight it or resist it. The best way to overcome writer's block is to just leave and try to come back at a different time. Then usually at that point you get your energy back, you get a new surge of inspiration, and you just are able to figure it out a lot easier. Next question is, what is your most personal song? I'm not going to go into detail as to how this is personal to me, but there is a song. This song really moved me to tears. And that is super rare. I don't usually cry because of songs or movies or reading something. Like, that's just not how my emotions work. I I feel emotions when I listen to certain songs, certain movies, or read something. I feel the emotion, but it's very rare that it actually brings me to tears. The song that actually did that to me and made me start bawling is "Even Though I'm Leaving" by Luke Combs. And I'm not going to go into details as to why, but it's such a depressing and sad song, and it seemed like the more that I analyzed the lyrics, the harder I started to bawl. So that song was super personal to me. It just, I was going through it, man, when I listened to that song. Next question is vulnerability important in songwriting? Yeah, I think sometimes if you want to get a certain message or tone across, you got to kind of be vulnerable. But it's not always necessary. But there are some instances where if you really want to touch somebody's heart through a song or meet like convey a certain message, yeah, you got to be vulnerable, but not always. Next question is, do you keep a journal or voice notes of ideas? Yep, I have a little note app on my phone, and I can also access it on my computer. Anytime I have an idea for, it's right now it's usually a funny or stupid song, or sometimes a mashup. I like to do mashups too. And so if I get an idea for a mashup or a goofy comedy song, I pull up my phone and I write it down, and then what's cool is I can access it on my computer, so when I go to edit, it's right there. So yeah, it's great because I'm very forgetful, and if you're very forgetful like me, doing this is perfect because you may have a great idea, but you're not going to remember it later. Writing it down in your phone or just writing it down in a journal or whatever, in general, is perfect for that, for keeping good ideas. Next question is, how has your recording process evolved? I would say quality of equipment and software and things like that. When it comes to music, let's see. So when I first started doing drum covers, I didn't have a snowball mic or anything like that. I didn't really have any super professional recording software. Usually, how it would go is I think I started with like my iPhone at the time, which I'm an Android guy now, but back in, or no, I'm going to go even further back. So when I first started recording my drums, I was 12 or 13, and I had this Kodak digital camera. That thing was a piece of garbage. It took good video, but when the lens would focus, the camera would vibrate, and you could hear it on the audio. That was the only camera that I had back then, and this was before I had a smartphone or anything like that. So I had this digital camera, and I would just play drums through that. And back then, I didn't really do any mixing. I did do a little bit of editing, but that was mainly just trimming stuff. I didn't do anything fancy. I would just take video on this Kodak camera, put it in the computer, trim maybe the start and the end, and I would just upload it like that. And fast forward to today, I have a much more not sophisticated, but a lot better and more complicated of a process. So when I record drums, I have my computer here on the TV tray. I have my headphones, my drumming headphones plugged into it. And then I have my snowball mic, my blue snowball mic plugged into it. And then it sits, well, the chair's right here. It's got my glass of water on it. But I use this chair to put the microphone on. And then I record it with Audacity. And then with Audacity, I have the song queued up that I'm playing. I have that playing at the same time I'm recording. And then after that's done, I save the drumming clip, the recording of the drums. I put it into Soundtrap, which is the recording software that I use. I plug that into Soundtrap, and then I take the song that I'm covering, and I put it into Moises, which is an AI mixing software where you can remove drums, remove vocals, remove guitar, any of that. You can remove those from original songs. So I'll take that original song, put it into Moises, basically delete the drums, download that mix, put it into Soundtrap, and then put the drum audio that I recorded on the snowball mic over it. And then from there, I use my mixing headphones to sort of balance the levels, the volume of each track. When I'm done with that, I save that. And then, I completely forgot to put this in. I record with my phone. I record video with my phone. And then I import that into the computer. I put the video into the video editor. And then I download the mix from Soundtrap with my cover and the drum recording. And then I sync the two up. I trim it. And I do last minute sort of tweaking with the volume. Because a lot of times when I record a song through Soundtrap, it peaks. It's very, very loud. So sometimes I have to turn it down about 10 or 15%. And then I'll put my intro in there. And I'll sync everything up. And then it's done. It's, yeah, when I sit there and I explain it, it's a lot more complicated and sophisticated compared to when I first started doing these videos. So it's definitely changed over time. In the future, I might get some actual drum mics for each drum and each cymbal and the kick drum. I might do something more professional, but as of right now, this is kind of my system and it works. Next question is analog or digital? What is your preference? Well, that kind of, I guess when it comes to music, it depends on the genre that you're trying to record. If you're doing something maybe with a vintage sound, you probably want to do analog to kind of get that oldie sort of sound to it. But if you're making something modern, you want to have digital. That's just the standard. Unless you're going for like you're sort of doing a new vintage vibe where you're like mixing the analog and the digital and you're kind of repurposing like an older sound. That would make sense. But I think overall, if you're doing something modern, you want to do digital. But for me, I don't know. I don't think you can beat analog. There's a certain sound to it that is just timeless. And, digital sounds great, but analog just has that rawness to it. So I would say analog is my preference there. Next question is, do you produce your own music? Yep. Yep, it's all me. I don't have a producer. I don't have anybody working for me. It's just me and myself only. And I try to do a good job. I'm not a pro, but yeah, it's all me. I don't have anybody working for me. Next question is, what is the hardest part of recording an album? So I have never recorded an album in my entire music career. That is a goal that me and the band are focused on trying to do sooner rather than later is record an album. And from what I've heard and from what I can gather of it, I think the most important, or the most complicated part and hardest part of recording an album is trying to record everything in as few takes as possible. Because it's one thing when you're rehearsing and you're in a jam session and you know what you're playing, and it's also different from playing live. And I think there's a different vibe when you're in a recording studio, and I think a lot of times you kind of psych yourself out, and especially if you're new to the song recording game, there's a lot of new stuff you have to learn, and so it's not the same as when you're rehearsing in your jam room or when you're performing live. It's a completely different vibe, and I think since it psychs you out, you're more prone to making mistakes. And I think that's another thing too, is a lot of new bands, they don't have the finished product before they go into the studio. And then when you go into the studio and you don't know what you're playing, you're going to spend a lot of studio time and a lot of money. And I think that's a tough thing for new bands to do, is to really get your songs solid before you go and record. But like I was saying, it's a different vibe. So it's trickier to really get that sound that you want, and to get to make everything perfect. It's a little tricky. Next question is, do you enjoy live performances or studio work more? Live performances. And it's not usually about the sound per se. That's part of it, but being there in the crowd and enjoying the crowd vibe and feeding off of the performers and their stage presence and the energy, it's a whole different vibe. It is so much better than sitting here playing a song through your headphones. It's just not the same as a live performance. Live performance is all the way for me. Next question is, how do you prepare for a live show? So, I have never done a recording album. I've never done an album in my entire music career, but I've done plenty of live shows, and I'm still learning more as time goes on, and the more I do these. But usually, it consists of having the band over and making sure that we have our songs totally solid and battened down before we perform. We got to practice. And then after that comes packing up for the gig. So I have my gator cases. They're these big bags that I put my drums in and my cymbals in. So there's that. I pack up, and then I make sure I have my recording equipment with me, that being my Zoom Q2N. Then the boys, Ford brings his bass and his amp, and then Daniel brings his not vocal amp. We actually just recently moved over to a PA. So he brings his PA, his guitar, his amp. We bring all of our equipment. And then when we get there, we set up. And then we do maybe a 10-minute, 15-minute sound check just to make sure everything sounds super balanced. And that's pretty much preparing for it. Just making sure you have all the songs down, and then gathering your right equipment and dialing it in for a good live performance. Next question is, what is the wildest thing that's happened on stage? It's not wild, it's very common, but out of everything that's transpired on stage for me, the wildest thing that's happened is, so this was when I was doing a drum solo. This was before Mimpathy was a thing and before I met Daniel, and when I was just doing my own solo stuff at the bars. I was doing a drum solo, and I didn't have a drum rug or anything like that. It was just my drum set and this hardwood floor stage. And I was going pretty hard on the drums during my solo. And what did not help is when I'm playing the kick drum, I rarely ever play flat-footed on the bass drum. I'm always heel up. So my heel is up in the air, and I am just laying into that bass drum with every kick. And there is video of it. I'm going to have to find it. But my bass drum kept sliding and sliding and sliding. And the wildest part about it was I was trying to keep the beat. So I was chasing the bass drum with my foot, trying to nail each beat. And it's kind of comical and kind of funny. But after each song, or not, after each like section of my drum solo, I would have to pull the bass drum back. And that was just super funny to watch. But it was very frustrating. But I feel like I did a decent job of keeping the beat despite the fact my bass drum sliding. And another thing that's sort of related to that, this is not the first time that's happened. It's happened many times. But so a few months ago, me and the band Mimpathy played at a foosball arcade, or a foosball place. And this was before I had my drum rug and my kick block, which I'll talk about after this. I didn't have a rug or anything like that. And I figured, well, because this was when I got a new drum set. And so I was like, okay, this new drum set has some pretty decent spurs on it. It should be able to stay in place. And I figured with the flooring that they had there, it was more of a, what do you want to call it? More of a like a rubbery type surface on the floor. So I thought, okay, the bass drum's got good spurs on it. The flooring is a little bit, has more traction. This shouldn't move. Well, I was wrong. Throughout the entire gig at the foosball place, I was once again chasing my bass drum. And the craziest thing that happened was afterwards, I get packed up, we're leaving, and then we're talking to a couple of our friends who are watching the gig. And they said, oh man, did you see Jonathan's bass drum just wrecked that floor? And I was like, what? There's scratches? He goes, yeah, there's big ass scratches on the floor there. And I was like, oh no, the owner's gonna be pissed. And they're like, no. We talked to him about it. He's totally cool. And I was like, oh no, like I should run in there and apologize. But they said, no, you don't need to do that. He's fine with it. It's totally cool. And I felt so bad after that I went out and I bought a big drum rug. It's a kick block drum rug. It is excellent. It's weighted. It's perfect. It's got a sort of a strap on the corner, on one of the corners to put cables under. And the best part of it is the kick block. It's this foam block that you put in front of the bass drum, and it's got Velcro on the bottom and it sticks to the rug. And it's a light little foam block. And the bass drum with that thing isn't going anywhere. I bring it to every gig. It is the best thing ever. It is the best invention ever made. And most drummers, they'll use a rug, and the rug is all right, but your bass drum is still going to slide at least somewhat. And with the kick block, doesn't move an inch, not even a centimeter. It is the best thing ever. If you're a drummer and you're struggling with the bass drum sliding issue, you don't have to get the expensive kick block rug. The kick block works with pretty much any rug. But yes, get the kick block. It is the best thing ever. I love it. And it's amazing. So yeah, that's the craziest thing that's happened at a gig, is me chasing that bass drum. All right. Next question is, do you have any pre-show rituals? Yeah, kinda. What I'll do is I'll have a cup of mushroom coffee in my mud water. That kind of mellows me out before the gig, but it also gives me a boost of energy, so I'm focused and I know what I'm doing. I might maybe meditate to sort of mellow me out, but also keep me sort of aware as to what's going on, because that's one thing that happens in mindfulness. You're super aware of how you're feeling and the environment around you. So yeah, that's usually what I'll do. I'll meditate, then I'll have some mud water, and yeah, that gets me pretty hyped for a gig. Next question is, what is your favorite venue that you've ever played? I'd say my favorite venue that I've played in my whole music career was playing with Ellen White and Norman Sylvester, two massive artists from the Portland area. Um, so this was when I was with a different band. This was my band from high school, Initial Limit. We were in high school at the time, and we got to audition for Ellen White. Like I said, a very renowned, very respected, very popular music artist from Portland. She came to our school, and she was doing auditions for her show with Norman Sylvester. So we did the audition. It's kind of funny. We I didn't really have a drum kit to play on for the audition. So I used, what did I use? I think I just used a guitar case. So we had a guitar case, and I took a bass drum pedal from the next room, which did have a drum set, but we weren't going to sit there and drag everything over. So I took a bass drum pedal that was from there, or I brought my own. I can't remember, but I had a bass drum pedal, and I attached it to this guitar case, and I played with the sticks on the guitar case like a drum. And despite not having much equipment, we nailed that audition. Ellen White was very impressed, and we got on the show. And it was so freaking cool getting to play with one of the greatest Portland musicians. It was such an honor, and I'm so thankful that we were able to do that. Norman is a super super sweet guy. Ellen is super cool, and yeah, I'll never forget it. That was probably my most memorable gig, was playing at the. That's right. It was called the Second Season Concert with Norman Sylvester and Ellen White. It was so cool. All right, next question is, how do you protect your own voice slash instrument? So I don't sing. That's not really my thing when it comes to music. I don't sing or anything. Or I mean, I do like I said, stupid comedy raps or whatever. But I think this pertains to live performances. And with live performances, I don't use my voice. So to protect my instrument, like I was saying, I have a drum rug that my drum set sits on, and then I have my gator cases. Like I said, those big bags that I put my drums in. Those protect everything. I don't have any dedicated cymbal bags, but I am able to fit all of my cymbals onto the top of the bass drum. So what I'll do is, and it's on the batter side, of course. I'm not going to put it on the other side where the band logo is. I put it on the other side. So what I'll do is I'll put the cymbals on top, and then I'll take a dish towel, and I'll wrap it in between the cymbals so that when everything's rattling around, they don't get cracked. Because those are my Peisty 2002 cymbals. Those cymbals are not cheap, and I want to do everything I can to protect them. Maybe in the future I'll get some cymbal bags, but right now they're not super necessary. But that's how I protect my equipment, with the gator bags, and then a dish towel for my cymbals. All right, next question is, what is something the average fan doesn't know about being a musician? I would say maybe the time and effort that comes into becoming a musician, and also the sacrifices you have to make, especially if you're trying to become pro. There's a lot of sacrifices you have to make, and I think that's one thing that the average fan maybe doesn't understand, is the sacrifice that goes into it, but also the effort that you have to put into to become a good musician and also to get recognized. Next question is, how do you feel about streaming platforms? I think they're great for getting your name out there, and also for convenience for the listener. I wish they would pay a little bit at least, because I know Spotify only pays their artist pennies, and I think that's kind of messed up. But yeah, I think there should be a streaming platform that actually pays the musicians. So that's my only gripe about streaming platforms. But other than that, they're super convenient, and they're really good for exposure if you're a band or an artist and you want to get your name out there. Next question is, how do you measure success in your music career? Um, I would say success as far as Do you have a decent following? Are you making genuinely good material? Maybe the venues that you're playing, if you're continuing to play larger and larger venues, that's a measurement of success. And also, are you happy with what you're making? Are you satisfied with where you're at? That to me is another measurement of success. Next question is, do you think social media has helped or hurt the industry? Um, yeah, I think it's helped it a lot. Because of social media, it's a lot easier to get exposed. There now, granted, there is a lot of competition. I mean, I've seen it as an artist with our band. It's very, very hard to actually dial in sort of your content making to where you're getting the most exposure. It's a very tough sort of process, and there's a certain way to do it. But I think as far as ease of access, streaming or not, social media is awesome for musicians and artists because it's a lot easier to not to get exposure per se, but to put yourself out there. It's a lot easier than it was back in the day. Next question is, what is your take on AI in music? I think it's sad to say, but I feel like AI music is gonna probably take over a little bit. Um, AI can make some pretty great music, sadly. But I feel like we'll reach a point to where after AI sort of not takes over, but is very prominent in the music industry, I think there will be a point to where people will start to go back and value human made music a lot more. It's sort of like the resurgence of vinyl records. Like after we went from vinyl to tapes to CDs to digital, um, I think the simplicity of digital music playing, I think it really made us think, oh man, like a vinyl record is so much better in terms of how you're able to engage with it. And so I think it'll be the same thing um, with AI music. There's going to reach a point to where we're going to go in the past a little bit and sort of relish the creativity and the human element that goes into human made music. Next question is genre still important or are we past that? No, I think genre is still important because there has to be a way to sort of categorize different types of music. If you just label music as music, it's really hard to differentiate the different types of genres. So you got to have genres to split them up and put them in different categories. Next question is, what advice would you give someone just starting out? I would say, well, for one thing, I would say before you get too ahead of yourself, the music industry is not easy to get into. So don't get your hopes up and think that you're gonna get famous right away, even though that does happen uh, very rarely. But as ACDC once said, it's a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll. So if you want to become a famous musician, you gotta be prepared to really put in the time and the effort to not only make it big, but to also get really good at what you're doing. Talent is an aspect to it, but there's a lot of dedication and hard work that goes into making good music. Next question is, how do you deal with criticism or rejection? Criticism I'm able to deal with pretty easily just because I know that as a musician there's a lot of things I don't know and there are a lot of things that I need to work on. Um, and so criticism isn't a big deal to me, especially if it's constructive criticism. I'm always looking ways to revamp and restructure my style and also learn different things. Like as a band, sometimes our singer Daniel or our bassist Ford will say, "Hey, do you think you could play it this way?" Or do you think you could do this? Can you think you could do that? Or do you think you could slow it down or speed it up? Um, I have no problem with constructive criticism. It's all about that's a big part of becoming a musician. it doesn't make sense to be just stuck in one spot and think you're just that's just how you are. There's a lot to learn in music. There's always lots to learn. Um, we're finding new stuff every single day, and I'm learning stuff a lot. I've been playing for 15 years, but I'm still finding new stuff out, and I'm still experimenting with different things. And I have no problem with someone telling me, "Hey, can you do this? Do you think this is a good idea? Do you think you could tone it down a bit? Do you think you could slow down, speed up?" It's no problem. Now rejection is always hard to deal with. We let's say our band. Let's say we try to get signed to this record company, and we want to make millions of dollars, and the record company goes no. Like that would be a very hard thing to get to get past. And also, let's say, well, it's happened before. Let's say we put our content on YouTube or Instagram, and people tell us we suck. That's rejection. That kind of sucks. But as far as like constructive criticism, I have no problem with it. I have no problem with learning new things or doing something different. All right, next question is, what role does image or branding play in music today? I think branding, yeah, and image, well, not really so much image, but branding, yes, has a lot to do with it. That's why when our band first got together, I was right there making sure that we had a logo and we had a page and everything going, because if you don't have a logo and a good name and a social media presence, it's really hard to get recognized and gain a fan base. So you got to have a logo to remain recognizable and people know who you are. You got to have a good name, something catchy, something that people will remember. And these days, social media is a huge part of getting exposure. And so I think having a big social media brand, or at least a profile, or something to put your stuff on online, is very, very important. Next question is, how do you stay authentic in a crowded industry? It's really hard because sometimes when you make music and you put it out, someone has already made that type of music, and that leads to a lot of lawsuits. And a lot of the times, the artists who are getting sued say, "This is a complete coincidence. I did not steal this music. This is just an idea that I had that this other person coincidentally had the same idea." And I think going back to the sort of social media and streaming and things like that, it is really hard to try to make a unique sound, because with that ease of access, there's a lot of people with the same idea, and that's just kind of how it is. But it's really hard to become original when there's so much music out there that's already been done. It's hard. I don't think there's really a way to overcome it. You just have to put out your best stuff and hope that in some way it becomes unique. Next question is, if you could jam with any artist, living or dead, who would it be? So I've talked about him before, and I've always been a huge fan of him and his band, Brad Wilk and Rage Against the Machine. Something about their music just kicks absolute ass, and I would love to be up on stage with Rage Against the Machine, and something about their energy. I just It's hard to explain. They just Every time I play a Rage Against the Machine song, I'm so into it each and every time. I talked about Neil Peart earlier in the episode, and I love Neil Peart. I love Rush. Their songs are great and they're fun to play. But if I put on, so one of the first songs that I ever learned on drums was Know Your Enemy by Rage Against the Machine. Know Your Enemy, once I nailed that song down, 15 years later, I play that song and I'm just so into it. Something about Rage Against the Machine's energy is insane, and I would love to play with them. Next question is, if your music was a color, what would it be? Music doesn't really have colors. What is this? I mean, I would say as a band, because our logo is pink, hot pink and white, I would say hot pink is our band's color. The hot pink is just the Mimpathy color. That's how we identify. So pink would be our color. Next question is, what is a band or artist you think is criminally underrated? I would say one artist that no matter how many bangers he makes, people just sleep on him and it's annoying. My one of my favorite rappers of all time, Kari. And it's weird because like he'll have these viral hits, but for some reason, most of the people sleep on this guy. And there are songs that he's made where I'm like, this is it. This is going to be one. This is going to be the one. And each and every time it gets a big following, but Kari, for some reason, people just don't want him at the top. It's very frustrating. It's like, oh, this guy is insane. This guy is awesome. Like, why isn't his shit on the Billboard Top 100? Like it should be. And he's just he's constantly slept on, and it's very irritating. Next question is, build your dream festival lineup. Who's playing? So this might be cheating a little bit because there was a festival lineup that was kind of similar to this, but I would have another new metal festival. So I would do Creed. I would do Seven Dust. Who would I put there? That third slot there. I'm gonna get some hate for this, but Limp Bizkit. And Limp Bizkit does have good music, but critically, I know it's not the most sophisticated. But the reason why I want to put Limp Bizkit in that lineup is because their energy is through the roof. They know how to get a crowd just going bananas. They know how to do that. I talked about this before, but at the Woodstock 99 concert, Limp Bizkit enticed the crowd into tearing pieces off the stage. That's how into it and crazy they got the fans. So I want Creed. I want Seven Dust, who is criminally underrated as well. And I also want Limp Bizkit just for the energy aspect. Just for keeping the crowd going crazy. Mosh pits, all this crazy shit. I think Limp Bizkit is essential for that. All right, next question is, if you weren't doing music, what would you be doing? I would be doing this right here. This is my second passion. Podcasting, voice acting, just doing anything with my voice besides singing is my second passion. So if I wasn't doing band stuff or drum covers or anything drum related, I would be doing this. Next question is, what is the weirdest genre mashup you've heard that's worked? I would say rap metal, so new metal, rap metal. Those are two completely different genres. And, if you told me 30 years ago that you could combine the elements of rock and rap, people would be looking at you like you're insane. I guess I should go back a little bit further. Maybe 50 years ago, 40 or 50 years ago, when rap was just beginning. If you told me that, let's say, the Sugar Hill Gang and Led Zeppelin could have a music genre baby, I would say no freaking way. But years and years later, they made it happen. Bands like Limp Bizkit and Dislocated Styles, which another underrated band, Nonpoint, Seven Dust, all those bands, all the new metal bands, Linkin Park, Saliva, all those bands, they combined hip hop and rock, and it was just it's one of the most genius genre blends ever. And I think 50 years ago, nobody could see it coming. Next question is, what's one trend in music you wish would disappear? I would say this whole AI shit, and I feel like ironically it's okay. Like if you're making fun of something or you're doing something funny, then yeah, AI music is necessary. And it hasn't really happened quite yet, but I really don't want like serious music to be completely AI. And I especially don't want it to become mainstream and overshadow the the human made music. Like, I just don't want that to happen. I think AI music should strictly just be for funny stuff, just stuff that you just don't take seriously. That needs to fizzle out as a trend. All right, next question is, what is your go-to karaoke song? So I've never done karaoke, um, and I'm not a singer, so I'm very reluctant to do karaoke. But the one song that maybe if I drank and you got enough beers and alcohol in me, or maybe if I had the balls to go up there and do it, my karaoke song would be "Get Low" by Lil Jon and the East Side Boys. It would be more comical than anything, but I know that song by heart, and that would be my best karaoke song, just because I know it by heart and I know the energy that goes into it. It would just be super funny, and I think that would be worthy of a karaoke song for me. Next question is, can you name a perfect album? No skips. Yes. The album that I never skip a song is Blackbird by Alter Bridge, one of my favorite bands, my top three. I would listen to that song back to back when I was making the commute to work when I lived 40 minutes away from my job. I would put that album on. I would have one hand on the steering wheel and one hand with my coffee mug, and I would just drink it and listen to the Blackbird album. And to this day, it never gets old. Not one bad track on that album. Alter Bridge is an incredible band, and I don't think there is a album that they've come out with that I haven't listened to all the way through. But Blackbird, in my opinion, is my favorite album of theirs, and yeah, every track is a banger. All right, final question. This is number 50. Ooh wee. What is one song that changed your life? I would say the song that changed my life, as far as the way that I saw music, was when my stepdad showed me Rush's performance of YYZ back in the day. I think it was when that song first came out. There was a concert that they had where they played that song, and I was blown away. Not only with Neil Peart's drumming, but with the vibe of the song in general. And before that, I wasn't super into music, but after I heard that song and watched a little bit more of the concert and saw Neil Peart's drum solo, I was a complete Rush nerd from then on, and that made me get into more music, and it was history from that. All right, y'all. That does it for this episode of the Brogcast. I hope you enjoyed this one. This one was a little bit longer, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.